and would have good to... Hey guys, it's Sam, and it's time to fail together. Let's go. Today is the second book club, and we read The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. This was a good one. I really enjoyed it. So, let's dive in. In American culture, the topic of death and dying is pretty taboo. There seems to be an unspoken rule to only focus on the good. If anyone says anything related to dying, it's not uncommon for people to respond with something like, "No, don't say that," then change the topic. But it didn't always used to be this way. In the past, cemeteries used to be public parks, and funerals were kept in the home. It's, in fact, why the living room is called the living room. But somewhere down the line, our culture morphed into what we see today. People interpret the deceased as dirty or disgusting, and funerals are grossly sad. This doesn't acknowledge the increase in celebration of life ceremonies. However, there still isn't much talk there about the proceedings until after the person has passed. So the Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, subtitle, How to Free Yourself and Your Family from a Lifetime of Clutter, by Margareta Magnusson, opens the doors to talking about death in life. As you can tell from the title, throughout our lifetimes, we tend to gather a lot of things. What happens to it all once we die? Should we prepare for this before we do? And if so, how? First, let's talk about the book itself. Margareta's book is an approachable and casual read. It's a useful conversation starter, and it even gives you tips on how you might do that. I had someone carry on for the majority of a plane ride once they noticed it in my hand. They were very excited. In the span of about 115 pages, there are 24 chapters, or sections rather. They're really short. I appreciate how she gets what she means to say on the page and doesn't waste a whole lot of time with fluffy anecdotes. The content does manage her life experience quite frequently, but it is short, sweet, and to the point. Life short, why be long-winded? Her wording is gentle and emotionally aware, knowing that many might have a difficult time approaching this subject. She reads as very warm, almost like you're talking to a grandmother. It's like a warm hug when you're talking about a quite dense subject. I have personally been increasingly interested about the topic of death throughout the years. There's so much to learn about it, and I find it utterly fascinating. From the difference in approach between cultures to the variation in our own over time, there's just so much to cover. The developing options regarding how to handle bodies after death has truly blown me away. In the past, I've appreciated the work of Caitlin Doty on her channel, Ask a Mortician. I'll link it below. I've also just learned that she's written a few books, so those are gonna have to get added to the list. But all of that still covers what happens after we die. Before we die, there's still so much to do. Aside from last rites, wills, and funeral arrangements, what do you do with all of your stuff? Now, I've been to my fair share of estate sales, and while getting a nice secondhand deal can be fun, it always feels a little bit like trespassing. Maybe that's just me, and I know not all estate sales are for dead people, but still. I personally love the idea of taking stock of the things that we own before we die, and breaking it down to what would be most useful for us and our loved ones. Having discussions with them about what they might want, who's gonna get what, and what to do with the rest can save a lot of time and grief later on. You might be holding on to things thinking that people are going to want them later, only to find out that they could care less. Your next of kin could assume that an estate sale is in order when really you would have just rather have your stuff donated to the Restore or a homeless shelter. You could be sitting on a closet full of stuff that you haven't looked at in years and would make better use at the thrift store down the street. I'd say keep the things that make your life feel full and happy, and gratefully get rid of the rest. When I had the conversation on the plane, the stranger asked me why someone as young as me was reading up on a conversation that's typically so far removed. Fair point, my response. Life is a roller coaster of ups and downs, and while we can plan for 80, we might only get 25. This doesn't mean we should live our lives like we're dying, but it is good to remain aware of how your life affects the ones that it touches. Now, this stranger, a senior and a veteran, congratulated me on this mindset. He called it mature. I just think it's more self-conscious than most Americans. It's just not the culture we're taught in, but wouldn't that be nice? Feel free to open up the discussion in the comments below. I'll see you next time.